welcome to Let's Play Gran Turismo 3, episode 58. And where previously, on Gran Turismo 3, we did the Elise Trophy, and where officially, as you would have expected for pretty much the prize car I won, to those of you who have watched the previous segment, you obviously know very well that I sold that simply because, well, it was the exact same model as the Lotus Elise 190 I already had. And so, let's move on to our penultimate IB event in this game, which is the Clio Trophy. And obviously, I need to head up to the car dealer, because there are only two cars I can use for this next event, and both of them are at Renault. So we have a choice of two cars here. We basically have the Clio V6 and also the Clio race car, and from previous experience I know very well that originally it was basically the Clio V6 that features in the championship itself. I'm pretty sure this is the car that I will need. And as for the colour itself, well, I think the one I'm going to go for is... yeah, sure. Let's get this thing in blue. Just because I want to. And from what I can work out, I don't think I need to do a lot of tuning to this thing, but obviously I am going to get the super slicks because I would imagine that's inevitable, considering obviously this is the professional league. And I'm also going to put on the racing chip, and I wonder how much power I can get from a turbo. Well, I know I probably don't need this, but obviously I'm going to purchase it just in case, and well, I think overall that's about all I really need, because I'm pretty sure this will probably be easy, but again, I don't want to take too many chances on knowing how easy this will be, and well, I'll leave the rooms. Anyways, let's now head over to our third championship event in line, which is the Clio Trophy. So, 5 race championship, as always, a car born to run fast. And these are the tracks we are going to. So we're going to Rome, Grand Valley, Route 11 Reverse, Deep Forest and Monaco for the final race, and 15 grand if we can win each of these races, and only 2 cars we can use. We've got the choice of the V6 or the race car. Obviously, I chose the Clio V6 because I would imagine this probably won't be much of a challenge, but again, I did the oil change just in case because, well, I would imagine that probably is necessary, and my car has not increased by much. But obviously, taking off the driver aids because I don't need them, and don't think I really need a lot of tuning on this thing, but I do have the turbo with me just in case, even though I'm pretty sure this will probably be easy. But anyways, let's get going with race number 1 of the Clio Trophy, and where I would probably imagine once pit stops have been made, this is what will probably allow me to take the lead with relative ease. At least I think this will probably be easy enough, because I don't want to dominate this thing. So off to a poor start, but again, that's more or less what I've come to expect, even though, because this is the professional league, I'm pretty certain this AI probably will be making pit stops, and that is when I will officially pounce on their errors. I don't really think I need a lot of tuning to win this championship, because if I remember correctly, this is probably one of the easiest championships in the professional league from what I can remember, and I'm pretty certain that overall it will not be long before I officially take the lead, because that is literally how easy this thing is, methinks. So, AI at the moment currently closing in on me, probably because they have quicker tyres on, but obviously I have the more durable tyres, and I'm pretty certain it will not be long before they have to stop. And even though I'm running in second at the present time, I'm pretty certain it will probably not be long before I do manage to take the lead, because tyres with the AI, they usually do tend to fall off after a couple of laps, and then once one of them does make a pit stop, I'm pretty certain that I will manage to hopefully take the lead. And a little bit of contact there with one of the silver Clios, as of which I don't think it's really necessary for me to be calling these things by colour, because there's only really 4 colours that are racing in this championship, and obviously I chose this one because I want to stand out. Because I choose to be an independent. Also because furthermore, I really do like this blue. And margins are closing now to the leading V6. I think that's meant to be indigo, because I'm pretty sure that thing is not in black. I think it's just a very dark indigo in terms of colour, methinks, that is leading this thing. And considering what the history is behind these cars overall, I'm pretty certain their tyres will burn up within probably a matter of minutes, and then once they do, that's pretty much when I will officially allow myself to take the lead. So it's still under 2 seconds at the moment, but obviously I'm not too far behind the leader. The only tuning I've really done to this thing is put on a racing chip, since I figured that was probably all I really needed, and nothing else. And officially, I did figure I was wanting to challenge myself, so that's exactly what I did. So obviously I was thinking about this before I started, and since I knew very well that from my previous history with this game, this championship would be relatively easy for me to win, obviously. I knew very well that realistically I probably would be able to win 4 out of 5 races without doing too much tuning, because dependent on knowing if I'll get a perfect score or not, that remains to be seen. But in the meantime, I am keeping up with the leader, because he is not extending himself too much. And obviously I did try my best to limit the tuning as much as I could, and then officially it just came down to this. So I am closing in on the leader, but I'm suspecting that's probably because of tyre degradation, which more or less became the inevitable factor of these professional league races, because most of them are pretty much 10 laps long, except for Monaco, which I think is about 15 laps. and I would say if I am fortunate, I might be able to possibly win this race once pit stops have been made. So I am now closing in on the leader, as of which I knew it was only a matter of time before those tyres officially started to wear off, and I am now catching up to the leader. Obviously I did not want to make this a farcical race and just dominate over the rest of the field by doing expendable tuning, which obviously, as I discovered, is not necessary. And the sun is now shining over my TV, methinks. Meanwhile, I am still engaged in the fight, and I am right on the ass of this Indigo Clio, because if you see there, it might look black from one angle, but it also looks very dark blue from another angle. In other words, basically indigo. I think that's what that's meant to be. I mean, a very dark shade of indigo, granted, but I'm pretty sure that's meant to be indigo, because I don't think that's officially black, is basically what I'm saying. Anyways, I do now take the lead in this race by pretty much half a second, and obviously I figured, of course, that tyre wear probably would be inevitable at some point, and since I fitted the super slicks, I knew very well that obviously that was when I would pretty much allow myself to take the lead, as of which I'm now leading by less than a second. And I would imagine it's inevitable that sooner or later this AI will probably pit, and then when they do, I'm basically left onwards to probably dominate the rest of these races. Again, there is a possibility I could make this a perfect score, but again, since I am not being overconfident, I'm pretty certain there is still every shot to say for sure that these races could easily go wrong if I fuck this up in a big way. I am still pretty certain that I'll probably manage to win either 3 or 4 out of the 5 races, is what me thinks. Because from what I can work out, this championship is pretty easy, but obviously I'm not wanting to jinx my opportunities of making this a clean sweep, which is probably what could happen, but again, I'm not saying for sure if it will or won't happen, because I never do predict I'm going to get a perfect score, especially if I know it is a professional league championship. Even though I have managed to get a clean sweep in a championship before, I would imagine this is probably going to be another one of those probably one of those neurotic exceptions. As like, I know very well there is a possibility in saying I could get a perfect score, but obviously, because I tend to challenge myself most of the time, I'm not willing to bet this will officially be a clean sweep. Plus furthermore, I do have very little tuning, and I would imagine Route 11 reverse will probably be the exception, considering the AI has looked stronger around Route 11 than me in the past, considering it is only the second time I've actually raced there in this game. So I probably will put the turbo on for Route 11 reverse, and then if the race basically becomes pretty much way too fucking easy for me to win at Route 11 without needing a turbo, then obviously that's basically when I'll just remove it again. Anyways, we are now 7 laps into this thing, and already I am pretty much picking up where I left off in the Elise Trophy. Continuing to dominate by default of tyre durability, and also the fact I'm saying that I am pretty certain these tyres will manage to get me up to the finish line possibly 4, maybe even 5 times before the rest of the field. Because tyre wear, I would imagine, is going to be quite a large role in this championship, as it has been for all of the other championship events, and I'm now leading this race by 3.1 seconds. So my lead is slowly continuing to extend, since I would imagine the AI are probably running on worn tyres. Meanwhile, I am very much on much fresher tyres, and officially I've just learned this is now already the start of lap 9. So, 2 laps to go here in Rome, and officially the gap is now pretty much well over 3 seconds. And I'm pretty certain that I will probably be calling this championship by points and not really by colours, because obviously, like I said before, there are only 4 colours in this championship, and you may hear me nickname the cars by colours at some point in the championship, but obviously, like I said before, since there are only 4 available colours for this thing, and since I'm clearly the independent of this championship, because I'm using a separate colour to everyone else, I am pretty certain that I will probably be the likely dominator of this championship, as of which gap is now officially 5.1 seconds. Oh shit, I forgot to shift down. Anyways, final lap here in Rome, as I now pass under the light stand, and as I expected, the AI do pit at the end of this lap, and that has pretty much handed this race over to me. And it wouldn't surprise me if that isn't going to be the last time they'll pit. So figured there were going to be pit stops eventually, even though obviously this probably won't happen in every race, because, well, I would think Monaco probably is kinder to worn tyres than many of the other places, and, well, Grand Valley, I am pretty confident in saying the AI will pit in again. And of course, another thing I can confirm about this race now is that I am way the fuck ahead of everyone else, because I'm now 22 seconds clear of the second placed Clio, and as I expected, All of them are of course the road car models, they are not the race car models, and ultimately I am basically picking up where I left off, pretty much. So gap is now 23 seconds and I am continuing to open up that margin, and officially I have won race 1. So there we go. I win! And officially it was the 2 silver boys separating the 2 indigo boys, and then at the back it was red. And what's my winning margin in the end? 23.4 seconds over indigo, then it's the 2 silver boys, followed by the other indigo, and then at the back is red by 28.5 seconds. That is how much more dominant I was on the tyres than the AI were. And it looks as though I probably will pick up from where I left off in the Elise Trophy, because even though I will probably be struggling to get to the lead at first, once the tyres really start to warm up, that's officially when I will manage to take the lead. And there is a chance in saying this could be another clean sweep, but it won't surprise me if it isn't. Because I'm pretty certain this championship will probably be easy. And officially, I think because I don't have a replay saved on the normal Rome circuit yet, I think this probably will be where I save the replay. Because I'm pretty certain I have a replay saved on most of the other circuits, and yes I do. And so officially, let's move on to race number 2. And where I would imagine it's probably going to take me somewhere over an hour for me to get to the halfway point. Anyways, race 2, and we are at Gran Valley. So let's basically pick up where we left off in Rome. Basically the only thing I can really say for sure. And as I expected, I am off to a bad start. Meanwhile, the AI are currently pulling away from me, probably because they are on grippier tyres like I've said before, and there is quite some squabbling going on up front. We have quite a squabble going on at the moment. And I'm now starting to close in on the leaders because gap is now only 8/10 to the leading Clio, who I think is one of the silver boys. And yeah. Oh, dicks. Okay. It's alright, it's fine. I corrected the oversteer. And already, as I expected, I'm closing in. And everyone just suddenly parked as they went through the corner. Anyways, going down into the corner, and holy shit, I pulled off a double pass through that one corner. I literally made a double pass. I did not think that was going to work. And it doesn't last very long because, well, one of the Indigo boys had to steal my thunder. Anyways, I am getting back into the thick of things, as which the leader is currently extending, but I am pretty certain it will not remain at 2 seconds, because since obviously Gran Valley does have a history of being very hard on grippy tyres, I am pretty certain it will only be a matter of time before these AI pit. And then once they do pit, that's officially when I can manage to take control of this race. which is what I predict is going to happen. Even though at the moment, the AI are proving to be faster than me because they are on grippier tyres. But again, my tyres are still warming up at the moment, so I would imagine by the end of this lap, the tyres probably will be warmed up, and hopefully by possibly the end of lap 3 I might be able to challenge for the lead. But at the moment I'm just happy to stay where I am. Oh, fuck you. And suddenly I just got shuffled to the back because this AI just really had to fuck with me through the chicane, or at least one of the Indigo boys had to fuck with me at the chicane. But again, I am hoping to get my vengeance. Over that son of a bitch, because I'm pretty certain the tyres on the AI will not last, and it will only be a matter of time before my son of a bitch and saboteur manages to pretty much savage the competition. In other words, eliminate the competition. And at the moment I'm really having to push hard because these AI are not giving me an inch at the present time. But again, as long as I do not get a repeat of what happened at the hairpin on this lap, then hopefully everything will be okay. So margins extending at the moment. I think it's clear to say that on my more durable tyres I'm currently slower than these AI, but again, I would imagine it's only a matter of time before their pace drops off, and then by the time it does drop off I will be ready to strike. So already at the start of lap 3, the margin at the line was originally 4.7 seconds, but I've now closed that down by 3/10, and hopefully, as long as these AI do not continue fucking with me through these corners, then maybe I might be able to fight for the lead. Because margins are now closing down, and already I'm officially closing in on the leaders. So the margin at the moment is now under 4 seconds, so I'm really slicing that interval down, and it is only a matter of time before I do manage to take the lead, hopefully. So margin at the moment is stabilised, but I am pretty certain it will not stay that way, because I will be willing to strike back on these AI, considering obviously it's the one right in front of me in particular where I am wanting to get my revenge over the unnecessary manoeuvre that he pulled off. On the second lap. Anyways, I am still continuing to close in. It also looks like I'm starting to get a tow from the first of the two Indigo boys. I am starting to get myself in the draft, and I'm running very wide at the hairpin. But I have no idea how exactly I managed to stay on track until the exit. And margins at the moment are still pretty much stabilised. But again, I'm basically waiting for a pit stop to officially give me the eventual lead. in this race, because I'm pretty certain a pit stop will happen. Have no idea why my thumb just let go of the throttle. Guess it must have just slipped or something, but anyways, it doesn't matter because I'm still closing in. And yep, that margin is definitely decreasing because I'm looking faster through the middle sector than his AI, and I did of course manage to trace some paint with one of the Indigo boys. Had to give him a little payback for what happened at the hairpin, because obviously I figured I was needing to get my fair trade of the paint, and so that's essentially why I had to pull off that manoeuvre, because I'm pretty certain he would have done the same thing to me. Anyways, so coming up to the end of lap 4, I'm now back up into the 3rd position, and officially I am closing up on the leaders from what I can work out, because I think it's fair to say now that my tyres have indeed warmed up, I am hoping that by the time a pit stop is made, I will manage to hopefully take the lead at some point. I have no idea how I was able to send it through the hairpin, but somehow I was. Anyways. So margin at the moment is definitely closing, even then of course if it's not closing up by much. Meanwhile, I am now heading through the 2nd hairpin now for the 5th time here at Gran Valley, and the leaders are not too far away. Of course it is Silver leading Indigo. I am still running in 3rd at the present time. I'm also pretty certain that at some point I will of course manage to take the lead, and really had to be aggressive there on the rev limiter of this V6, as of which I am now up to the 3rd position, and it appears as though my V6 motor is now getting the power it needs to officially close up to the leaders. Indigo there is running wide through the 4th tunnel and diving down the inside, having to make that manoeuvre stick as I get a slip of oversteer there for good measure, but I did of course manage to pull off the manoeuvre. Really had to send it in order to officially move up, because I'm pretty certain the first of the two the leading Indigo boy would have just been an annoyance otherwise, and he is still proving to be faster than me. Anyways, lap 6, and the gap is now under 2 seconds. So these tyres are definitely starting to go to work, even though these AI are proving to be quicker than me down the straights, but obviously because of my relentless manoeuvres through the corners, that is effectively how I have now managed to close up to the leader, and hopefully now, for the first time in this race, I can officially take the lead. And so, here we go, closing up to the leader, and officially managing to make a shot at 1st place. And the gap is now 0.2 of a second. Going down the inside, he leaves the door open. I do manage to slot myself through the door and shut it once again, and officially, for the first time in this race, I now take the lead. and it's taken me nearly 6 laps to do so. So for the first time in this race, I am now the leader, and hopefully from this point onwards I can remain the leader. But again, this has actually been a pretty good championship so far, because overall this championship so far in terms of the racing, it has been anything but farcical, because I've actually had to fight my way up to the front with the little tuning I have on this thing, and oddly enough, this AI are still proving to be quicker than me down the straights, but oddly enough, I'm still able to fend them off through the corners, and effectively that is the main reason why I've managed to stay ahead for so long. And looked as though Silver was a little wide there on the entry, but he did manage to gather it back up on the exit. He is still right on my ass at the moment, but I'm only hoping he will not stay there. And I was way too early with the downshift. As of which, obviously, if I would have probably done that multiple times, I'm pretty certain I would have already broken the transmission by that point. I would have at least burned up the gearbox, probably, if I kept doing that. Fortunately, however, I now have an interval of 2.2 seconds, because that is how much more beneficial my car is through the corners in comparison to this AI, and sorry, I'm just choking on something at the moment. I will need to have some water by the time we get on the front stretch. And the only real comment I can make up to this point as well, tyres, once again, proving to be the story of why exactly I am now pretty much pulling away from the pack. But again, for the first half of this race, at least until lap 6 when I officially took the lead, I would say this has actually been a pretty close race. And officially, at the end of lap 7, the AI do now pit, as I'm setting another lap time within the 2-minute 8s. Yeah, sorry about that. I needed to get some water because there was something stuck in my throat, and I knew very well that if I didn't have the water I would probably choke. Anyways, once again, tyres have pretty much been the order of the day, and I am now well over 26 seconds clear of the rest of the field. Because of tyre longevity, which is basically the only reason why I eventually come down to dominating these things. Because I'm the only one who does not have to pit, and because of how much more beneficial my cornering speeds are in comparison to the AI, officially, that is another thing that has managed to keep me ahead. And oddly enough, from this point onwards, it's basically just been a straight line so far in a race. Alright, so 27 seconds to the leading Clio. or at least the leading AI. As we now have just 2 laps to go, and I am pretty certain this will probably take me well over 20 minutes to finish this. Even though obviously the only real tuning I have on this thing at the moment is basically just a fucking racing chip and an oil change, because that's basically the only real tuning I have on this thing besides the tyres. Of course, I did buy myself a turbo kit just in case, but judging by what I've seen so far in this championship, I'm really not sure on knowing if I either do or don't need the turbo kit on. Well, I'll probably put it on for Route 11 reverse anyways, but I would imagine that's probably going to make it look too easy, methinks. Even though, at the moment, I am just continuing to extend my lead at pretty much a vast rate of knots. As like, my domination is continuing to become an extension. Up to this point. And now they're closing in. And no, they are not. The interval is opening up. So 27 seconds is the margin to the first of the 2 silver boys, and as for the rest of the pack, I really don't know what the order is. Even though the interval at the moment is slowly decreasing, but again, because I know very well I do not have to pit before the tyres go down, I am pretty certain that I will manage to win this in spite of me losing most of my group. And I have no idea why I was on the grass. And I think up to this point, as long as I don't make any major mistakes, I am pretty certain the second race will pretty much be mine. Because since the pit stops took place, I've just fucking decimated the field. Even though they are slowly closing in, obviously, I would imagine I am definitely not going to lose this thing. Because even though the AI are on fresher tyres than I am, and the AI have looked stronger here at Gran Valley than they did in Rome, I'm still pretty certain that regardless of how much my lead is decreasing at the moment, I'm still pretty certain in saying that I can probably win this race. Or I should probably say well over 21 minutes in terms of how long this race is going to take, because laps around Gran Valley here... laps around Gran Valley have basically been well over 2 minutes long, so I'm pretty certain that by the time I do cross the line, the margin probably will be somewhere over 20 seconds, because I'm pretty certain that is how much I will have basically decimated the field by as a result of my tyre longevity. Anyways, there we go. 2 for 2 to me. And let's now wait for everybody else to finish. Alright, 25 seconds in the end, and I'm still pretty certain as I almost dropped my controller. And I'm still pretty certain that there is probably going to be a tie for second now, because it was one of the Indigo boys that finished second in the first race, and now it's one of the Silver boys, and oh, okay. Yeah, I must admit, it's very confusing when you know very well there's only 4 colours available for one car. And even though this is a one-make championship, I'm still pretty certain that since there are more than one car of the same colour, it does get very confusing. It's basically confusing as fuck. But we still have 3 races to go, and well, I think out of desperation on knowing that because this is a track mostly compromised of high-speed straights, I will put on the turbo kit just for this one race. And as for the rest of them, I think I'll probably win without any necessary tuning. But again, I'm putting on the turbo just for this one race because I have a feeling this AI probably will be stonking me down the straights if I don't do this. But officially, the racing in my version of the Clio trophy in this game has been pretty good, because obviously this has actually been pretty easy so far, and effectively overall I did get lucky with the pit stops as well, which have effectively helped me at the moment. And because I know Route 11 is a circuit that favours the AI more than it favours me, I know very well that at the start it's going to be pretty fucking difficult to keep up with his AI to start this race. Oh shit. Almost oversure the oversteer was gonna force me into the succumbing zone. Unfortunately it didn't, and darting down the inside of the first of the 2 Indigo and Silver boys, and I hit the inside wall. But it doesn't matter because I'm still fighting for the lead, and I now take the 3rd place away. And as I expected, aggressiveness is still very high, and I've been shuffled back to 5th, and I will be likely shuffled back to 6th as I have succumbed to oversteer. Meanwhile, I am still waiting for when exactly I can re-overtake. But I have noticed, this car is pretty hard on tyres, and I figured of course it was probably more than a plausible reason for me to give this thing the super slicks, because obviously they appear to be the only racing tyres that will actually go the distance. Although, the one thing that is very much poignant for me is the fact I'm saying that these AI are still pretty much as overly aggressive as they always are. Even during professional league races, they still do not care for your existence. They don't care if you are living or dead, basically, like I've said before. And at the moment, Red is actually having a pretty good race because he's actually fighting for the lead, which is one thing I have noticed. So Red is actually having a pretty good race at the moment, compared to when he has notably been in the 6th position for the 2 previous races. And well, since I knew Route 11 was probably going to be harder for me to win anyways, I figured a turbo was probably needed, and at the moment tyre wear is not proving to be too much of a problem for me, although this is only the end of the 2nd lap. And I'm pretty certain for the leaders, they will eventually succumb to their tyre deflation, and I would imagine it's only a matter of time before they make that first pit stop. And oversteer is still continuing to punish me quite harshly. So whilst I am trying to avoid the confusing monotony of this AI at the moment, I know very well that there is not a lot of indecision. Although fortunately, however, the turbo has been helping me to keep up with his AI here, of course, on the straights, and obviously this has definitely been helpful because I'm actually able to get a tow of his AI, and one thing I did not expect this thing to be is a 6-speed. No doubt in saying it's probably a 6-speed manual gearbox, and officially the turbo is helping me massively because I'm now only less than 3/10 behind the leader, and diving down the inside at the first hairpin, and I now take the lead. And I'm pretty certain this is another course that has probably 4 sectors, methinks, because I've already made it through the first sector. Meanwhile, I am now pretty much clear of this AI, and because I am still pulling off some relentlessly calculative moves, I have effectively put myself in the perfect position to officially winning this race. So, oh, dicks. Okay. I am still engaged in the fight, and fortunately, I am now pretty much ahead of the 2 leaders. And oddly enough, at the moment, Red is definitely having a good race. Here at Route 11 reverse, when he moved up from the back of the field to 3rd. And overall, he's actually running pretty good, from what I can make out. And officially, I'm now coming through to completing lap 3, because we've been racing on some pretty long circuits in this championship. At least this, as well as Gran Valley, account for being long circuits, which is basically the main reason why these laps are over 2 minutes long. And I think with the turbo I might have made this a little bit too easy, but again, I figured since I knew the AI were probably going to be more beneficial down the straights than I was, as of which we do have quite a lot of straights on this circuit. Officially, I knew very well that whilst I knew there was a lot of long straights and low speed corners here at Route 11, I was pretty certain that a turbo was probably needed in order for me to keep up with his AI, and now it looks like I may be dominating this race. Not by much, but I might just be starting to dominate this race since I've taken the lead. Or maybe not so much, because the gap is only under 2 seconds. And at the moment I'm swerving left and right. And I'm pretty certain it's not the tyres, because it probably has to be the driver, which is me. Because I'm pretty sure the car will have the competence to win this race, but it just depends on knowing if the less than active driver has the competence to win the race. Although, if I do manage to win at Deep Forest and tyres do become an issue again, which I'm pretty sure they probably will, then obviously that's probably where I'm going to be at the advantage point. So, margin is now picking up just a little bit, because I'm now pretty much 3.3 seconds clear of the leading AI, who have pretty much strung themselves away from the back of the pack, which is basically the bottom three. And at the moment, I'm doing pretty good, methinks. So the gap is now officially pretty much 5 seconds. So tyre wear is definitely kicking in for these AI, and officially durability is managing to favour grip once again for the 3rd time in succession. As of which I'm continuing to extend my interval. Even though obviously I do also have a turbo kit on, you know, because I figured I wanted to make this just a wee bit easier, and I've definitely benefited from that, because I'm now pretty much well clear of these AI up to the halfway point in this race, as of which we now head across through the final corner and also under what I think is meant to be an interpretation of the Golden Gate Bridge, even though obviously I don't know where the fuck that bridge leads to. I think that's a building structure there. Obviously those are skyscrapers, and I also set a new best lap in the process of a 2 minutes 11.2, which is pretty much less than a tenth quicker than my previous PB. Meanwhile, I can now confirm I am pretty much well ahead of these AI now. So I'm continuing to extend my interval. Obviously, the turbo has helped me in some cases by extending, but obviously this I did mention before was going to be the only race I would use the turbo, because for the other two I'm thinking I may be able to win at Deep Forest, and well, as for Monaco, I'm pretty certain once the tyres warm up, that too will probably be an easy win. And I think I just saw the cars over there for some reason. I think I just got a glimpse of the AI racing through there. Basically a vertical shot, methinks. Just gotta run with these tight lines, and then hopefully I can manage to nurse the car home, regardless of how warm these tyres will get later on in the race. But at the very least, they will manage to go the distance without giving out in terms of grip. That is one thing I know for sure. These tyres are durable enough to achieve that, and even on a track that basically has intensive wear such as this one, I'm still pretty certain a win is possibly more than likely, and I almost equalled my best lap time. So, currently setting times within the low 11s, but I'm pretty certain by now a win is going to be more or less guaranteed by the time his AI pits. And I'm certainly hoping that whilst the battle for second position is relatively close, I'm personally hoping that Red can actually avoid finishing last in this race, because it would be nice to see him have some luck for once, or at least have his fortunes changed, or something like that. I don't fucking know. Anyways, I am pretty much continuing to dominate this thing. And yes, I do see the AI racing through there, because I should probably mention that is something you can see. So, under the lights of Route 11, and obviously, at the moment, I am still continuing to extend my lead. And almost I'm sure I was going to hit the outside wall, but fortunately I did not. I can now pretty much say I am way the fuck ahead of everyone else, because at the moment I am pretty much decimating the field with my turbo, and officially my lap times are still within the 2:11s. Gap now to the leader is officially 13 seconds. Although I'm pretty certain as this race goes on and on, the margin will only continue to extend. Because, well, I'm pretty certain up to this point, even if I didn't have the turbo one, I'm still pretty certain I would have probably taken the lead in this race eventually, methinks. Because I'm pretty certain that since I had the super slicks on, I would have probably still won the race anyway. Even though it is pretty much becoming more than apparent that up to this point, I am pretty much more or less going to win this race, even if the AI do not hit. I'm not paying attention, because I was trying to see if I could have a sip of water whilst driving at the same time. And unless it's actually plugged up to me, which my bottle isn't, then obviously that is unlikely. So in some cases you could say I'm carelessly distracting myself, but in other cases you could say I'm basically just continuing to extend. So pretty much 14 seconds now, the gap, as we approach the end of lap 8, and I'm now going to take a sip of water since the straight is long enough for me to do so. Excuse me. Yeah, just sipping my water as I am now starting the 9th lap here at Route 11 reverse. I'm pretty certain that a win is pretty much guaranteed, even if the AI do not pit, as long as I do not wreck anywhere, or at least as long as I do not fuck this up in a big way. Then ultimately, I think it's pretty much fair to say this race is more or less mine. Meanwhile, I am still the dominator. Also furthermore, I've just noticed it is nearly 7 PM. So yeah, this is basically late afternoon, early evening at the time of when I'm recording this. Anyways, domination continues. And I think it's fair to say that because I put on the turbo, I had to make this probably the most boring race of the championship so far. Although obviously, this race is not going to be as boring as Monaco, because Monaco will probably be an easy win anyway, because the AI just basically crash a lot at Monaco. That's pretty much all they really do. They basically just send their cars into the corners, and in the process they basically send them into the armcos. Yeah, just literally sending them into the barriers without any remorse or regrets. Anyways, final lap. And I think the AI might pit here, even though tyre wear is not as much of a concern here as it was at Grand Valley, and indeed they do pit, so my theory was correct. They do pit, and ultimately I would imagine pit stops are not going to change the order. Meanwhile, I'm now 20.4 seconds clear of the leaders, and they are now coming out of the pits, and I would imagine my lead, since they pitted in right before the final lap, is probably going to increase, because they will probably be on more tyres, and I can now see them heading through that corner, since obviously that is the final corner of the normal course, and I am of course now heading through this little chicane here, and heading up to these 2 consecutive hairpin turns. This version of Route 11 is certainly better than the original version from GT1, which obviously has been cut off, and oversteer forces me to hit the barrier, but obviously I'm pretty certain a win up to this point is more or less guaranteed. Meanwhile, I'm entering the final corners now here. At Route 11, and coming up to completing the final lap here at Route 11 reverse, and I'm pretty certain this is going to be an easy win. So like with the 2 previous races, I easily won on tyre mileage. Also on tyre durability. And this is where I'm actually going to pause recording, because this is where we can actually wait for everybody else to finish. And so in the meantime, that is exactly what I'm going to do. Alright, everybody has finished, and as I expected after that final pit stop, I still extended my lead. So in the end of that, I won by 44.5 seconds over the first of the 2 Indigo boys. Red surprisingly managed to finish in 3rd, which is basically redemption for the 2 6th place runs that he had at both Rome and Grand Valley, and effectively he is now tied for 5th with the 2nd of the 2 Indigo boys. Meanwhile, there is also quite a tussle going on between the 2 Silver boys. So 30 to me, 16 to the first of the 2 Indigos, then it's the 2 Silver boys, and then it is Red tied with the 2nd of the 2 Indigo boys. So another 15k to me, and we are now at the halfway point of this championship. And officially, one thing I confirmed from that race as well, I do not need the turbo anymore. So I'm just going to remove that, and let's just get on with the race. So, an ultimate race of the Clio trophy. And we're officially, if I win this, which I'm about probably 60% certain I will win this race, officially I will be confirmed as the champion. Well, aggregately and mathematically confirmed as the champion, because that is exactly what I anticipate. And also, fortunately in this championship we are not racing a test course, because obviously that is probably one of very few circuits in this game that I do actually have animosity for. Incidentally, because I really do genuinely have deep and strong hatred for test course, which is exactly what the meaning of animosity is. So, diving down the inside of the first of the two Indigo boys and up into the fourth position I go, as of which obviously this car is easier to handle than the Elise that I drove in the previous segment, and already the gap has now shrunk to 1.7 seconds. Diving down the inside, and this time Red has actually taken the lead away from the first of the two Indigo boys, and again this AI is still proving to be superior down the straights, even though I have the more superior cornering speed, which is officially what's keeping me up in the fight. And since I know Deep Forest is mostly a combination of low-speed corners, and I think the first of the two Silver Boys must have probably hit the inside wall if he fell down to 5th. That's what I think must have happened there. Unless he fell to the back, in which case he probably did. And already, I am now managing to hold on to 3rd position. So, intervals increasing very slightly, but tyre wear, I would imagine, is going to be a problem sooner or later. And I am anticipating that tyre wear probably will be an issue for this AI before the end of the race, as of which I've now completed 2 laps in 3 minutes. And officially, I am still continuing to close in. So, I have strung myself away from the back of the pack, and ultimately, Red at the moment is actually looking like he could be a possible contender for 3rd place in the championship if he keeps this form up, because I think Route 11 was definitely a booster, and that's a one. But yeah, I mean, like I was saying, I think Route 11 must have been probably a booster for Red, because he's actually leading this thing at the moment, and he is actually fighting for it, whereas in the first 2 races he was not even close. As unfortunate as that might sound, but ultimately I'm slowly closing the gap to the 2 leaders. Obviously, the rest of the pack is not far behind me, and as long as they do not fuck me through this final corner, I'm pretty certain that I will of course manage to possibly win this race. So 1.9 seconds is the interval at the moment to both of the 2 leading Clios, as of which I only have a racing chip on this thing along with an oil change, besides the tyres now. And obviously, I'm definitely closing in, because the gap is now just over a second. And from what I can work out, I think a win is very much on the cards here, as of which we are nearly 4 laps into the race. And not far from the halfway point, basically. So they were able to extend just a wee bit down that back stretch, but I'm pretty certain it will only be a matter of time before I do manage to make a move for the lead, as of which this car is certainly a lot more stable than the Elise was, and I go for a purple lap time, a 24.1, and slotting down the inside, trying to pull off the double pass, made a little bit of contact there with Red there. I was not quite able to pull off the double pass through the hairpin, and I think I got a brief cockpit shot there of the Clio as well. At least I saw the mirror, and at the moment Indigo is just being an arsehole. And subsequently this could possibly get interesting. But I'm shooting down the inside, still making contact in the process, and I think Red has now fallen back to 3rd, even though he was fighting for the lead temporarily, and there is still every possibility to say for sure that he could still be fighting for the lead, as of which I'm basically trying my hardest to block as hard as I can from the Indigo Clio, who is basically just bump drafting me at the moment, because he's definitely proving why the AI are more superior down the straights than I am, and ultimately we are now halfway through this race. So, lap 6, and officially I'm now pretty much confirmed for the lead, because I would imagine near the end of the race this AI will probably be more than likely to pit before this race is done, and that's all. And the pack is bunching up again, so effectively is AI still managing to be beneficial down the straights, which is effectively their pincer point, but fortunately I am managing, of course, to get my pincer point through the corners. And since there are more corners here than there are straights, I'm pretty certain that I will probably manage to hold them off for the race win. Again, I do feel sorry for Red when I was trying to make that double pass through the hairpin, which obviously wasn't going to work, but I still attempted it anyway, because I thought there was an opening, but apparently there wasn't. But officially, at the moment, of course, I would say the field in terms of their positions now have pretty much stabilised, and officially we are pretty much over halfway through this race. 2.4 seconds, and now the gap, as of which 6 out of the 10 laps are now completed, and I'm predicting it is only a matter of time before the AI stop in for fresh rubber, which is basically what they have been doing for pretty much every other race before this one. And yes, that is exactly what I think makes me so certain. By thinking that is exactly what will probably happen. So, 7 laps are down and still 3 to go, as the gap is now only continuing to gradually extend pretty much lap after lap, because the AI are on more tyres and Red has now managed to retake second position away from Indigo, so I would think by now this probably will put Red into potentially 4th position, because he is really coming up on a consistency run. So Red does now manage to retake the second position away from the first of the 2 Indigo boys, and the second of the 2 Indigo boys I think is either running in 4th or 5th. Meanwhile at the back it is still Silver, following his crash that he had earlier in the race. Meanwhile for me, it is still a continual domination. So 2 laps to go now here at Deep Forest, and ultimately after this we will basically be going onwards to a clean sweep, because I am pretty sure that Monaco will probably be an easy win, judging by what I can probably make out, and that will effectively be what makes this championship a clean sweep. So, pretty much 6 seconds now to the AI. I think I've pretty much confirmed that a clean sweep is more or less the likely possibility, as of which I can now say that up to now, when these AI do pit, if they will, I am pretty certain that my lead from here, regardless of what the AI does, will just continue to extend. Anyways, final lap, and as I expected, the AI, like they have done in pretty much every other race before, they are pitting in. So the AI pit whilst I basically stay out to pretty much continue to extend my lead, as of which I do have quite a large lead at the moment. So, since we are back of course to the shorter tracks, I would say this is more or less where I am going to make it 4 out of 5 wins. Although it will probably be 5 out of 5 wins, because I'm pretty sure Monaco will probably be an easy win by the time I manage to get past the AI and avoid being caught up in the skirmish. But officially, there we go! For the 4th time, I emerge victorious. And Red does manage to officially take 2nd place. And so officially, we are now going to wait for these AI to finish. Alright, so, there we go. 27.8 seconds was the gap at the end of that race. So Red was second, the first of the two Indigo boys was third, then it was the two Silver boys ahead of the second of the two Indigo boys. And so, I'm pretty certain that since I am now double the points of everyone else heading into the final round, I am pretty certain that whilst we do have a tie for fourth, there's also quite a battle going on for third as well. So, between three cars, there is a battle for third position. Meanwhile, first and second, and sixth up to this point, I would say, are pretty much secure. So, just in case if anything goes wrong, I will save the game, just in case. Even though I'm doubtless nothing probably will go wrong, and let's now head over to the final race of the Clio Trophy, which takes place at Monaco. So, I'm not going to waste your time, I'm just going to get this over with, considering this race is obviously 15 laps. And it'll be pretty long as well. I'm also pretty certain I'll probably dominate this race by the time I take the lead, because obviously the AI do not appear to have the will and competence around Monaco as they do other circuits. Although the one thing that does annoy me is how that very bright sun is just basically making it look like it honestly wants to kill me. Anyways, down the inside I go, and Red has now been pushed back as a result of that contact through Mirabeau, and I forcefully manoeuvre myself up into the first position as we head through Lowe's, and the Portier, as of which I'm probably getting more payback than I should be getting from the first of the two Indigo boys. And he is still fucking me in terms of how much contact he's making, and had to force him out wide there because obviously it is almost impossible to go too wide at Monaco, or at least two abreast, and that's a wall. Ultimately, Red has now fallen back, so I think that's pretty much decided what the order is going to look like. But as I suspected, Monaco is officially probably going to be an easy win, as I now round out Le Rascasse and officially head up now to Saint-Devote for the second time here at Monaco. Tyre wear, I'm pretty sure, will not be too much of an issue for me, and as I'm pretty much staring into what I think is probably the sun of death, by how much glare there is, I'm still pretty certain this will probably be an easy win, because the AI do not seem to have the willingness to get through these corners about as much as I do. Even though up to this point I've basically swept up every race by default of my tyre longevity, although officially at the moment of course I am doing very well, pretty much doing very well indeed at the moment, because I now have an interval to this AI, as I can now see the city of Monaco just up ahead of me, and heading through the Nouvelle chicane once again, and now heading down the harbour stretch into Tabac, and down of course through the swimming pool section, as of which there is also a diving board there, and officially I continue to extend my lead. And hopefully I will probably go onwards to dominate the rest of the race, methinks. And so 2 laps are down in the course of just under 4 minutes, and officially there is quite a struggle going on at the moment. But at the very least, I do know for sure that Red will definitely not be last in this race. But at least he has managed to put himself up into a comfortable position. Even then, of course, if it doesn't look like Red is going to take 3rd position. But as long as he manages to hold on to a possible 4th or 5th position, then that's pretty much all I really care about. And Red has now fallen back to 5th. But the one thing I know at the very least is that Red will definitely not be last in this championship as a result of his finishing on the podium for 2 races. Unless he manages to stage a comeback, which appears to be unlikely because it is almost impossible to overtake around Monaco. Even though obviously this version is wider than the actual version that you see in the F1 games, the truth is it's still same old Monaco, because Monaco as ever is still a near impossible circuit to navigate, and it's also pretty much near impossible to overtake at Monaco. Fortunately, however, amidst all the chaos on the first lap, I was officially able to pull off some overtakes because of the AI pretty much being very slow around here. So heading through Mirabeau once again off the exit of Casino Square, now heading down into Lowe's hairpin once again before the Portier. And that is a wall. Trying to avoid pulling off a Senna through the second Portier as we now head, of course, through the tunnel now at probably over 100 miles an hour by the time we get down to the braking point. Around about probably 107 miles an hour down into Nouvelle as we now head down the harbour stretch into Tabac once again before heading through the swimming pool section. And I think those are meant to be garage doors that I see there. Although obviously, since this is not the actual Monaco circuit, this is a much wider circuit where overtaking is possible, but again, racing is still pretty boring, in my honest opinion. As I now head down through Saint-Devote, braking from 100 miles an hour down to probably under 70 miles an hour, and up the hill now into the Hotel de Paris, and following that into Casino Square through the right-hander. There is the Casino Square as I now head down the hill into Mirabeau, and then I follow this up with the old Lowe's hairpin once again, pretty much going very fucking slow through there and keeping it all nice and tight as we now head through the tunnel once again to possibly going onwards to yet another domination run. And I think it's fair to say that I have pretty much a fat and chunky lead up to this point. So, I think it's pretty much fair to say I have more than enough of a lead to say that I will probably dominate this thing. So, I think by the time we get to probably the halfway point, I think a win will probably be guaranteed up to this point. Even if I do make a mistake, which I'm pretty sure I will, I am still pretty certain that I will manage to win the race. And also, this fly right in front of me is being very annoying, but obviously there is nothing I can do about it until I finish the race, and then hopefully... oh fuck. Then hopefully by the time I have finished the race, I will officially be able to take care of it. So, 13.5 seconds is now the gap as we have surpassed the third of a distance in this race, because a third of 15 is basically 5, and officially my successful domination run is continuing. As I am also trying to scratch my nose because my nose is being itchy again. Although then again, because of how incompetent these AI are in comparison to me around the circuit, I was pretty certain this would be an easy win, and of course now, as a result, the domination is continuing. So coming up to the end of lap number 6 now, here at Monaco. And under the Michelin bridge, and that is an outside wall. Unfortunately, margin is pretty much continuing to extend pretty much lap after lap up to this point, as of which we are now pretty much 15.5 seconds clear of the second placed runner, and it is probably up to this point that I will go onwards to dominate the rest of this race, methinks. Meanwhile, I am now 15.8 seconds clear of the second placed runner, who at the moment is one of the silver boys, and I'm pretty certain this will probably solidify his position in securing possibly third place in the championship, methinks. Meanwhile, I really don't know what's officially going to be happening with Red, unless he manages to take fourth position. Then he might be higher than 5th position, but I'm pretty certain he will not finish in last, because that seems unlikely. Anyways, through Le Rascasse we go once again, and completing our 7th lap here at Monaco. The domination run, as I expected, is continuing, and officially we are now pretty much 13 minutes into the race, and I would imagine this is more or less what it's probably going to take for me to officially finish this race. Because obviously, this race in terms of laps is extended. Although, unless this AI do pit before the end of this race, I'm not thinking it's going to be far from the end, because obviously that's basically what they have been doing pretty much all race long, and up to this point in the race I can pretty much say that even if I do make a mistake up to this point, I can still win this race. Because my domination at the moment is still continuing. I really cannot think of much to say at the moment, except for me trying not to hit the Armco or concrete barriers. As of which I would imagine that's probably the main reason why they have a catch fence there, because obviously the safety of the drivers more or less evident from what I can make out. Anyways, lap 9, and officially we basically have 6 laps to go after this one. Even though I really don't see the point of why exactly they extended this race to 15 laps if they knew it was basically just going to be a snooze fest. So, I wouldn't necessarily say that I have animosity towards Monaco in this game, but I mean, in the F1 games, I probably do have animosity towards Monaco, because effectively, Monaco in the F1 games is pretty much about as wide as that line there. Unfortunately, it is a good thing to know that Polyphony did manage to extend that line, because officially overtaking is actually a possibility. Even though obviously they weren't able to get the licensing rights from the AI, effectively they definitely made this circuit wider than the circuit actually is. Which oddly enough in some cases is actually helpful, because this version of Monaco definitely beats the real life version. Anyways, 6 laps to go now here at Monaco. The domination run is still in continuation at the moment, and as I now head up the hill slowly, I'm going to take a sip of water. And, oh, bollocks. Apparently I did not have enough time to take the sip before I made it to the corner. Guess I must have been going in the corner quicker than I thought I was. Also, furthermore, I do apologise if my bottle rubs the mic. At least, I think that's what it did. But at the moment I can probably say domination is probably the only way I can truly describe this championship on the whole. So, 25.7 seconds is now the interval to the leaders up to this point. And officially, all I can really say at the moment is, well, the domination is continuing, basically. And I moved to the outside wall. Alright, here we go. 5 laps to go. and I still don't see the purpose of why exactly they extended this race to 15 laps. I still think it was unnecessary, as I just did a short shift there accidentally, but ultimately I really don't see too much of a point in extending this race to 15 laps if you know the race itself is going to be boring, and that's essentially what this race is. So, sliding left and right through Mirabeau as we now head past Lowe's Hairpin and the old parking lot as we go through Portier now, and officially it is pretty much fair to say up to this point a win is probably more than certainly guaranteed up to this point. As I now head through Portier now for the 11th time, and coincidentally domination is continuing, and I am not concentrating. And the reason for that, well, probably because I am way the fuck ahead of everyone else. And it really doesn't matter if I make a mistake up to this point, because I can pretty much guarantee up to this point a win is definitely not going to fail. So a chance of failing to win this race, probably less than likely. But meanwhile, as I just see some track marshals there, and officially, up to this point, I can now say we have just 3 laps to go after this one, and then ultimately I can finally get myself out of this snooze fest. So if you really think Monaco is exciting in terms of the long runs, most of the time I'm here to tell you that realistically it is not. And almost moved to the inside wall, and I can feel a sneeze coming on. As I'm just trying to hold it in. Meanwhile, I am now 34 seconds clear. Of the second placed runner. And the reason I say that is because, well, I do not know what's going to happen, and it's taken them this long to know when to pit, and officially, by no means it is probably going to take them forever to finish the rest of this race. And I will probably not be far from overlapping one of them if they make another pit stop. But officially, after 12 laps, the AI have now pitted, and effectively that has pretty much made it a certainty in saying that I will definitely win this race, regardless of what happens next. So yeah, it's confirmed, a win is guaranteed, is basically what I am saying, and ultimately I'm heading through the swimming pool section now once again, as of which I can also see some cargo cranes all the way over there. I think that's what those things are. And officially heading past the concrete barrier and the fence. As we now head onwards to the start of the penultimate lap here in Monaco. And as I expected, I have just been pretty much on a tearaway streak. And yes, it is necessary for me to yawn, because that's probably all I'm really going to be doing over these final 14 laps. Is what me thinks. Ow. That is a wall. Anyways, so I think it's fair to say that I probably will win this race by less than a minute by the time this race is done, and officially this will probably be yet another domination run from none other than myself. Basically. So 53 seconds is now the gap. The scoreboard pretty much tells the story at the end of lap 14. I am more or less going to decimate the field in this race, as I would have expected. Anyways, final lap here in Monaco, and ultimately we officially have one lap to go, presented by none other than Credit One Bank, as the TV commentators would say for a NASCAR race. One lap to go, presented by Credit One Bank. Or as they would just say in Formula 1, just final lap. That's what they really say. And I am power sliding through Mirabeau because of how much oversteer I'm getting on the left hand side, and managing to capture it as I head through Portier. A little bit of contact there with the outside wall, and officially I can now say this race is none other than domination. Alright, so heading through to back now, and the swimming pool chicanes now for the final time, as I am now heading down through here into Le Rascasse now for the final time through Massenet and Le Rascasse to officially making this championship a clean sweep and under the Michelin bridge, and there we go. I win! And officially it took me a total of 27 minutes and 38 seconds to finish that race. And let's now wait for everybody else to finish, considering this will probably take a while. But yeah, let's wait for everybody else to finish. Come on, almost there. There we go. And I've pretty much won that race by less than a minute over these AI. So it was the first of the two silver boys in second, then it was the two indigo boys ahead of red, and then at the back it was the other silver boy. So these are your final point standings for the Clio trophy. So it is a clean sweep to me, 24 to the first of the Indigos, 19 to the first of the two Silver Boys, then in fourth it was Red, followed by the second of the two Silver Boys, and then at the back with 10 points it was the second of the two Indigo Boys. So pretty much more than double the score of these AI, and all I can really say about that is, well, total control. And yes, I do have a replay saved. Alright, so let's move on to the prize car now. And let's see what we get this time. And yeah, we got a plate. Let's fucking go. I have not got that trophy before. We've actually got a glass plate as a trophy. It's actually pretty awesome. And officially, I think this car is meant to be silver, but officially, we get the number 21. Yeah, well, this works, considering obviously this was basically the only car we were going to win anyway. But anyways, there we go. That was the Clio trophy, and next time we will be doing the Tuscan challenge to completing the IB events, and we are almost at 50% in this game, and yo, my win ratio has moved back up again, even though it's probably going to drop down by the time we've done the Tuscan challenge. Anyways, this is our prize car, the Volkswagen New Beetle Cup car, which is basically the only prize car we win from this championship. So, a nice car to look at, but it's also probably a car that I'll probably never use, methinks. Although that could just be my opinion, but I think it's a car I'll probably never use, but anyways, moving on. And so that's our prize car from the Clio trophy, and next time we shall be doing the final IB event in this game, which is the Tuscan challenge. Stay tuned.